Hey guys, this is Trevor. Just thought I'd put a video up on journaling. This is something I've kind of been passionate about for the past few months, really trying to make it a better tool for myself in order to self-coaching purposes, basically, to make sure I'm catching myself, I'm doing things wrong. And I'm learning too, it's very important to catch things when you're doing them right so you can repeat them over and over again. Most of what I've been gleaning this information from has been from Gary Dayton, and recently Dr. Brett Stenbarger, I think is how you say his name. He's got a website. I put it up here for you if you're interested. The book in particular I got on Audibles. It's called The Daily Trading Coach, and every day or so I'd go through one of the videos and kind of outline things I found useful. A lot of it's based on articles off his webpage. It's he took all the articles he felt that were most useful and he put it into book form, and really learned a lot of things specifically on how to journal properly and how to make lasting and effective change in your trading behavior, which I think is very difficult to do, as most of you know. What I learned mostly is what journaling is not. It's not a magic pill. You get out of it what you put into it. It's kind of like, for instance, golf lessons don't make you a better golfer unless you really put the effort into it and you really learn what you can out of the lesson. And it seems like a no-brainer, but it really isn't. It's so easy to kind of just go through the motions. Well, I'm learning this stuff. How come it's I'm writing this stuff down. It's not effective. It's not helping me any. But if you're not really putting the effort and the energy into it, you're not going to get anything out of it. It's not a reason to beat yourself up. I know I've been, I'm guilty of this. I often tell them, "Oh, this is dumb. Why did I do this?" You're just pointing out all the faults, and you need to spend as much time on what you're doing right as what you're doing wrong. And one point he made in the book is that you can actually become your own guru, because we all have strengths, and if you can take your strengths and really work on them and make them even better, you actually become very proficient at that, and you become a guru to yourself. You don't look to anybody else, for information, or you don't try to hitch onto someone else's wagon to, they'll be the savior of your trading. And you become more confident in your training when you do that. When you really know something specific and you're really good at executing it properly, you won't need to look to anybody else. You can just look within or into yourself to do what you need to do to trade well. And it's not a mindless action. You don't just write it down like a robot. Trading with no emotions, they always say that. It's a lie. There's no such thing. You have emotions. You're a human being. You can minimize your emotions and not act on them, but doesn't mean you're not going to have them. And the sooner you recognize that and embrace it, the more likely you can control how you react to your emotions. And more importantly, you learn how to use them in your favor. What's one tool that I found extremely useful is emotionally charging what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. If you charge it with emotion behind it, you're going to be more effective at stopping a habit, and you're more likely to take another good habit and do it over and over again, because it makes you feel good when you do it. And journaling is a great way to do this. And he said in his book, if you don't have words that describe emotion in your journal, you're not doing it right. And an example of my own trading, for instance, I had this really bad habit, this pattern. It's a pattern I recognize. That's one important aspect of a journal, is recognizing patterns. Is I tended to take 310 oscillator trades when we're in overbought conditions or oversold conditions or under major support and resistance levels. I wasn't patient waiting for them to break. I tried to anticipate early. Sure, it was a signal on a 310, but it wasn't really great structurally. And so it wasn't until I was disgusted and I recognized I'm disgusted with this continual habitual habit of doing this over and over again. It wasn't huge losses, but it added up on each little trade. It wasn't until I was disgusted with it that I would recognize it and then try to change the behavior. So you have to emotionally charge it with, you got to be disgusted first, almost before you make a change. Think of a drug addict. Before they really make a change, they had to be disgusted with themselves or have an epiphany of and then what they do is, once you recognize that, you can actually work on trying to change it. You do it by setting goals and recording those in your journals. And then when you're doing something right, you need to write down, the emotion you're feeling. I feel fulfillment because I did this properly, or I'm feeling, whatever it is, a positive emotion. And even the things that you do well already, you need to recognize it. You need to continually give yourself positive feedback and emotion on it. So that's really important, I think, because a lot of people think, oh, just write this stuff down, kind of look at it. No, you really got to put effort into it, and you have to be very focused and relentless. A lot of people stop journaling when they're doing well. It's almost like when you got somebody on the ropes, a boxer's got someone on the ropes, you don't pull back, you let down, throw even more punches, right? Well, the same thing with journaling. If you're doing well, don't get lazy. Keep journaling. Focus on what you're doing right and keep reinforcing it. Get better and better and better. Otherwise, you'll go stagnant in your trading, and it's a competitive world. Trading world is, so you need to be very good at that. He said another interesting point he made in his book is most of the successful traders he saw were extremely driven and extremely competitive. Now, there's different personality types. There's very introverted people who are competitive, but you have to have that drive, that hunger to want to do this and push through it and keep doing it and getting better and better and better. I always think of Kobe Bryant when he says this. That guy's got an amazing work ethic. I admire that in him and in his ability to improve, even when he's at his best. Who's spending the most time at the gym? It's Kobe Bryant. And that's why he keeps getting better and better even as he gets older. So the same thing applies to trading. You really need to do that. And I get lazy myself, and I've learned, I really need to motivate myself. And I noticed a big change in my trading as I've done this. I wish I'd done this earlier in my career, but I didn't. But anyways, it's really good book. I'll try to post some links to articles I like every once in a while. See if you guys want to look at them. Anyways, let me show you how I've been journaling. I've been using OneNote, and this is just back office stuff. You can do it any way you want to, but I find it very useful to do audio recordings during the day. If I don't have, because he says too, if your journaling is distracting, it's not worth, you don't want to distract your trading. You want it just to be able to write something down right away, or just say something into a recorder, record it, go back over it later. So a lot of times I'll just put an audio note in there, say, hey, feeling anxious right now, I'm in this trade. I think I feel anxiety about profitability for today because the first trade was a loser, and then I can go back and look at that. It also helps you when you say it out loud or you write it down, you recognize when you're feeling maybe a negative emotion or anxiety during the day. I'll also put in, like here, I'll do a timestamp. Here's an example here. This is today's trade. I'll put a timestamp in, and then I'll write a little something, or I'll say something. I'll always put a chart up too. It's really cool. Multi-charts. I did a hotkey where I hit Control C on a chart like this. I'll go Control C, put it here, Control V, cut and paste it. I've got my chart in there. I usually mark up my chart so I'll have any notes that I want in there. And then I'll put here what I made or lost on the trade. And I'm also using TradeView to enter the raw data so I can analyze, do I trade better certain times a day, so on and so forth. And then there's a timestamp on here. So if I want to look back at my notes on a particular trade, I go to OneNote, I can pull it up, I can see what I did, what kind of trade was it, what setup was it, what time, was I feeling anxious, did I have good sleep that night? I get all this information you can go over, and I can see really, just to reinforce what's important. I know in the beginning of last week, I didn't get very good sleep the 2 nights before, and I didn't trade very well those days. Well, you know what? In the future, I know that every time I don't get good sleep, I trade poorly, so maybe I just don't trade that day. Or I sleep in, and just if I miss something in the morning, oh well, it's my fault for not going to bed early. And also, it motivates me to go to bed earlier. I mean, all these little things add up to your trading, and they're really important. And I'm finding more and more that the journal helps me find these things and catch them early. That's the big thing. You want to catch negative patterns early so you can change them. I usually do one at night. I'll do a game plan too, and I can go back over my game plan for the day and see if I was correct in my assessment. That's another good way of keeping score on your analysis for the night before. Goals too. In his book, he says don't do more than 3 goals, because when you have too many goals you're trying to accomplish, you lose track of them. You can't really get good at them. It's better just to get really good at 3 of them and then move on to another goal. And once you feel it's become a habit and you don't need to think about it anymore, then you can add a new goal in there. For instance, for me, Gary recommended I take my anxiety temperature throughout the day, because I have certain times a day where my anxiety would spike for one reason or another. And I just made a habit. My goal was just every 30 minutes to an hour, just write down my anxiety level and then what's causing it. And it really helped me to recognize when I'm feeling anxiety and what's the cause of the anxiety, so I can quickly diffuse it and move on. Again, you can't get rid of the emotion, but if you can diffuse it and you don't react to the emotion, that's good enough. You're not going to get rid of it. So, and now it's a habit. I find myself constantly recognizing when I'm feeling anxiety, and I know why I'm feeling it, and then I just kind of brush it off. Today, I even put a note in one of my trades I was in. Here I said, where is it? Here, trying to convince myself I need to get out of this trade. I need to let the trade play itself out. So, so close to flatting this trade. And just writing down there made me recognize that, there's no good reason to get out. It's in my game plan. I don't know why I'm feeling this anxiety. Just when things move slow for me, it's hard for me to sit. I like to see it move right away. So I just recognized it. I sat back, put my stop in, took a walk, came back, and it had popped up, and it ended up being a really good trade. Got close to 8.5 points on that one trade. So it's good. I can go back, look at it, because you might forget you had those feelings during the day. But once you hit a goal, you move on to the next one. And I usually list my goals, new rules to focus on. I'm really starting to look at the 16 MA slope to really determine if we're having a complex pullback or a simple pullback. I'm also starting to look at some stuff that from Linda Raschke's webinar, and I'm going to probably add that to one of my new rules list. At least watch for a while, see if it works, and then my game plan, and I write it out, and so I know exactly what I'm doing the next day. So anyways, that's it for my journal. Hopefully you find it useful. If you have any things you think you could add, let me know, or if you found it useful. If you have any questions about what I do, because there's a lot of other things I do that are kind of nuanced that I'm more than happy to share with you guys. Just post on the page. And anyways, hopefully you have good trading tomorrow.